Boo! Welcome back to Scream Films, where we usually analyze movies and content in them and talk about them. Today, horror movies, a genre that many people love to watch. With over 130 years of horror movies, there have been thousands of millions of movies made to spook and creep the audience out. From the golden age of horror starting with Dracula, Frankenstein, The Wolfman, The Invisible Man, The Mummy, to the classics of the 70s and 90s with classic slashers like Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason, Ghostface. With the 70s and 90s letting even more people into the genre that many people would love and get excited for with these movies. Then we get to the 2000s where modern horror really starts, and we have not that many big influences. That's kind of a joke, but recently modern horror has been kind of a little disappointing to say the least. Today I want to go back to the beginning of modern horror and stretch it out to 2024 to see what really went wrong with modern horror and why it could be failing. So real quick, I'm gonna be saying that from 2000 to 2024 as of now is modern horror, just to make it simple and less confusing. I want to look at some reasons why horror movies probably are failing before I look at some movies to further explain my reasonings. So, some reasons of failing: storytelling, poor production, lack of marketing, the style of horror is getting old, competition in the market, overhyped by the trailers, video game adaptations, not really innovative or interesting, the originality isn't really competing with other branded names on horror, remakes just aren't as good as the original, the sequels aren't as good as the originals in the series, overusing content in films, the setup for stuff just gets really cliche and old. Those are my main gripes that I have found from either the internet or me about reasons why horror movies could be possibly failing in 2024. Side note, I'm not really looking at movies from 2024, mostly because the year isn't finished and what we have is complete garbage. Also, I can't find them anywhere and I would have to buy them to watch them, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to be smart and wait for them to be on live streaming services before I give my honest opinion on them. I'm going to be looking at 6 different movies from the year 2000 roughly to 2023 and see the good and bad of them all. The movies that we're going to be talking about is the Saw series, the Conjuring series, The Cabin in the Woods, The Witch, The Pope's Exorcist, and Slender Man. Wait, why is that here? Oh yeah, that's right. I wanted Slender Man on here so I can bully it mostly. Before I briefly talk about each movie and telling them the goods and the bads of them that I have experienced while watching them, I'm going to be talking about their IMDb star rating, the tomato score, and the audience score as an overall average of what people say about the movie. When I do a series like Saw or The Conjuring, I'm going to do an overall average of everything. So overall average of IMDb rating, the tomato score, the audience score. I'm also going to be talking about how much the movie is grossed in the theaters to also get an overall average rating of same thing, how much people liked it or not. Also, don't take the tomato score for granted. I have learned that the tomato score actually is kind of rigged. It's mostly just critiques talking about the movie, so it's a critique's opinion over anything else. You can say a lot about that with critiques and critics. Just letting you all know that the tomato score doesn't really matter. I'm mostly focused on the audience score. Most critiques actually just suck at critiquing movies properly, so that's why I'm just saying don't take the tomato score for granted. I'm gonna bring up at least 5 or more bad things that I've seen during the movies, if I can find that many. I will have to say at least 2 good things about each movie, just so I can ease the blow of them. With Slender Man, we'll get there when we get there. I'm going to try and persevere through that one, so wish me luck. Starting off with Saw. Saw started in 2004 and has gone up to 2023, with 11th one in the making. The average rating on IMDb stars is roughly 6.1 stars out of 10. The average Rotten Tomatoes score is roughly 34.5%, and the audience score is roughly 66.9%. There you can see that the critics could care less about these movies, and the audience personally likes them. Each Saw movie roughly had $10.7 million in budget. Each movie has roughly grossed $114.9 million in the box office. So talking about Saw. Saw started the torture prawn of horror in the 2000s, mostly for like the torture traps and the close-ups of those. Kind of did start there realistically. I would say the more gory stuff did start with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, but we're not talking about that. The gore in the movies is not for everyone. I know a few people who are a little with gore. They're weak, but the gore is not really meant for everyone. The overall story loves to go back and forth between movies, making this soap opera of a series. The traps themselves is kind of the more important stuff of the movie than like the story and whatnot. Most people just want to see the movie as they want to see what goofy traps are made for the movie and see if them work or fail. Each Saw movie feels the same. You have a trap plot, you have a cop plot, you have the side of Jigsaw and his apprentices if they are there, and then they all involve with gore and death. It all feels the same. One thing I don't like about the Saw movies is the overuse of the green tint of saturation. So what I mean is, yeah, it doesn't look that good if you keep using it. It does work. Hold up. Thank you. Thank you, editor me. It works with the first one when it's pitch black and you want a unique way of doing it, but they just keep using it in every movie, and it's like, you have possible ways of doing this better. Do something else. One thing that most people actually don't like, which I agree with, is the morality of John Kramer. John Kramer has this whole thing, for those that don't know, he has his moral thing of, I don't kill people, the traps kill people, it's their decision. And it's like, dude, you put them in the traps, you designed the traps, you picked out the people for the traps. That goes on to you. It's like the stupidest thing. But I do also understand in a way that it's more of a test than I'm going to straight up kill you. Die. You know, it's not like that, which I somewhat understand. The later movies of the Saw series, they don't feel like the originals. Spiral is its own thing where it's more of the cop plot than anything, and also barely involves John Kramer. It feels a little off. Another thing that I actually haven't written down, the gore that they eventually use for like Saw 3D looks bad. What I mean by that is the gore that they use, in some scenes it looks more pinkish than red and like actual blood. So it feels cheap in a way with some of the stuff. The writing in some of the movies kind of feels like a B film where it's goofy instead of like a Hollywood type of movie where it's kind of more serious. It all feels kind of goofy. Some good things about the Saw series that I personally liked is, well, the traps. That's this big thing. The traps they're all unique. They're not all the same. They're all something different. Another good thing that I do think that Saw series does really well, it is still going. It is expanded so much that they just keep making them, and they somehow get a lot of people watching them, which I think is really impressive, especially if it's the same thing over and over again. So that's basically it for the Saw series for now. I would love to cover at least the first Saw movie and give my personal opinion on it and just kind of go over it for a movie review. That would be really cool. There's 100% more green flags than what I said. I wanted to get at least 2 of good things that I think, 2 or more. Don't worry, if I ever cover Saw, I'm gonna go over in depth with probably every movie, or I can do it in one video and make it like a 3-hour long video. Maybe. I said that about John Wick and I haven't done anything about it yet. Moving on. Next is Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods has a rating of 7.2 stars on IMDb. It has a 92% Rotten Tomato score and a 74% audience score. It had $30 million in the budget and it grossed $66.5 million in the box office. So far, Saw and the Cabin in the Woods have made more than what they have produced for the movie. So that's good. We're gonna start out simple. Some of the characters just feel out straight up bland. The main characters do feel super bland, but that's because they're playing into the stereotype and they kind of show why they're acting really dumb. So it's okay that they're kind of more dumb. This movie is really unique. It does have like small Easter eggs of other movies, like the cabin itself is an overall thing of Evil Dead. It feels like a copy of horror movies, but that's kind of the premise of the movie itself, is that they need to sacrifice people to please these ancient gods. So they do it in a horror movie stereotypical way. At least that's what the Americans do. The movie is very self-aware. Like the people in the facility, they understand everything. They're like, oh, this is this and whatnot. It's very self-aware, like Scream. It has a very slow build-up because it's mostly you have 2 plots and it just kind of drags a little bit until they decide to read the book and they get the family to kill them. Once they get to that, then it gets a little bit better of more of a horror movie than just the setup. The plot can be kind of confusing at some times. For some characters, it makes sense why they're doing it, but others, it's not. Like the 2 guys in the facility, I don't remember their names up here, they're like, oh, this is okay because obviously we're doing this for the greater good. And yeah, some characters like, why do we do it this way? And it's like, shut up, don't question us. And they don't really go into depth of the elder gods, really. It's kind of just a thing, and then it's just, okay, goodbye. It just feels a little weird. The facility side mashed with the main horror plot takes it out of the movie. What I mean by that is you have a serious thing going on with the people with the cabin, and they're going through something, and then they cut to the facility, and it's like they're more laid back. It feels more comedic with the facility than it does with the cabin, which is probably what they were trying to go for, but it just feels a little off because it pulls you out of the spookiness. It's like, oh, we're following the main girl, oh no, she's gonna die, and then it cuts to them like partying, and it's like, oh, that's very weird to feel. The tone really isn't as serious as it probably should be. Again, that kind of flows with the pulling out of the moment. It just feels weird, and it feels like it should take itself more serious. Eventually it does near the end, like the last 20-30 minutes, it does take itself seriously whenever they release all the monsters into the facility. Then it starts taking itself more serious. Not enough Singorian Weaver. Wait, you gotta be kidding me. Give me a second.
Dude, she's such a good actress. My god. I could just meet her in person at a Comic-Con. Oh my god.
Hey dude.
Yeah, what's up?
Did you write the simp line in the script?
Hmm?
Yeah, in the Our Modern Horror Movies family script.
What do you mean, what script?
Pause it, dude.
Fine, I'll pause the movie. What do you want?
Did you write the simp line?
I didn't do it.
You did write it. I saw you do it.
Do you have proof that I did that?
Proof? I was there when you wrote it. That's the proof. Can you stop eating?
One more fry, okay? At least one more fry. Please. Thank you. Fine. What's your problem with me?
Why'd you write the simp line in the script? Or write what line? The not enough Sigourney Weaver line in the cabin in the woods bit? Oh, the Sigourney Weaver line? No, that wasn't me. How do you know it wasn't you? How would I know? Because I know. I was there when you typed it in. It was you. Okay then, if I wrote it, then you wrote it. We're the same person. You know what? What are you watching? What am I watching? A movie. Does it have Sigourney Weaver in it? No, it's not a Sigourney Weaver movie. Why would I ever do that? I'll just look for myself. You don't need to come down here. You don't need to see. No. I'm watching Van Helsing. Yeah, that's what I'm watching. Van Helsing. Sure, buddy. It's like no big problem. I don't care what movie you're watching. Dude, really? Aliens? What? We've been through this before, dude. You have a problem simping for her. Okay, what if it's a small issue, okay? You're also wearing an alien shirt while watching Aliens. Yeah, I'm wearing a shirt. You got a problem with my shirts that I wear? I'm not judging you about the shirt. Your simping has just gone too far at this point. If I'm simping for Sigourney Weaver, you're also simping for her. We are the same person. Do you not understand that, dude? This has nothing to do with us being the same person. Why are we arguing? I don't know. We're doing a weird split personality skit. I don't know. It was my idea. I have no clue why we're doing this. What were you looking at? What do you mean, what am I looking at? I'm staring at you. No, you're not. You literally just looked over here like there was an invisible camera for a fourth wall break in a show. What are you doing? Get someone else to write our scripts, dude. It's only us doing the channel. Exactly. It's only us. It's getting really annoying. It was just a light simp joke, okay? Why are you taking it so harsh? Says the one that did the simp thing for Sarah Michelle Gellar. That was a one-time thing, okay? Just don't do it anymore. We're trying to be professional here. Alright, I won't write any more simp jokes in the script, okay? Are you happy? Can I watch my movie? Sure, watch your movie now. Gosh. Okay, thank you. You want like a nugget or something? Fine, I'll have a nugget. You happy that you had your nugget? Sure. Don't do more simp lines in the videos, okay? That's all I'm asking. No more simp lines. Got it. Go finish the video. Yeah, I'm going now. I'll edit it later today. Yeah, let me enjoy my movie, please. Bye-bye. Have fun with your movie. Bye-bye. Idiot. Of course I'm gonna do another simp joke. Who does he think I am? Anyways. Movie time. Sorry about that. I just needed to address him about something. And the last thing that I really have is the elevator gag that they do. The second time is just boring because the first one, it's everything. Like you see them all, like you see all the security guys like get killed by unique monsters. And then the other, like the backup guys, they get there and then it does it again. But you don't see anything. You just see the window just get splotched with more fake blood. And it's like, oh, okay, this wasn't really needed, but sure, okay, we have it. Good things about this movie, it can be really funny sometimes. I consider this a more laid-back movie for me. I can feel like I can totally just watch this movie over and over again and just not be like spooked by it. I'm just built different like that. It's very unique in how it portrays the ideology of horror movies. So everyone like watching it's like, oh shoot, that's how realistically it probably would happen. Is very unique, like with Kurt, I think, Chris Hemsworth's character, when they're all like, oh, we need to stay together, and they use the gas and he becomes like a dumb jock and it's like, oh, let's split up to cover more ground. It's a very unique way of showing, hey, this is why some characters act super dumb in these movies, is a possibility of people controlling the whole situation. I think that's a cool idea. The blood in this is, there's a lot of blood. The blood in this movie is really cool to watch, especially with the end and it's just everywhere and you're like, oh snap, they actually wanted a lot of blood in this, and a lot of it's not really digitalized, which is really good. The special effects in this movie are really, really good. The makeup is amazing, especially with the creature design. It's so good. And that's pretty much all I have for Cabin in the Woods. Again, same thing with Saw. It would be way bigger of a list, but since I'm briefly talking about these and kind of giving basic points. So like Saw, I'm not going to go into further depth with it, only because realistically I'll probably do a video on all of these movies, maybe except for Slender Man, but I would like to go in more in depth with each movie individually in their own unique videos. So moving on to the next one. Next is the Conjuring series. So I had to think about how to do the Conjuring, since you can do the three main The Conjuring movies, or you can add all the extra stuff like they did with Annabelle and Val. I do have the overall rating with the whole cinematic universe of The Conjuring, but I'm mostly going to be focusing on The Conjuring itself. So with The Conjuring series, it averages about 7 out of 10 stars on IMDb. It roughly gets a 73.6% score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 82.3% on audience score. Each movie roughly has about a $33 million budget, and each Conjuring movie roughly grosses $281.23 million, which is pretty good. Now, the Conjuring Cinematic Universe, the CCU. Yeah, CCU. The average IMDb score on the CCU is about 6.2 stars out of 10. It roughly has a 49.9 tomato score and a 52.8 audience score. Now, if you're thinking, wow, that's really low than The Conjuring, it's because I added The Nun 2, and the 3 Annabelle movies, which didn't really get as big as The Conjuring movies. Now to the gripes and whatnot. The Conjuring, every movie of the main Conjuring series, so The Conjuring 2, The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, they all have basically the same premise of, oh, our house or something is possessed. Oh no, what are we gonna do? Oh, Ed and Lorraine Warren, you're here. Cool, can you figure this out for us? Sure we will. By the way, we know your house is possessed and we need to get rid of the demon. Cool. Exorcism? Yes. Okay, cool. They all feel the same. I basically just, right there, roughly just did every movie in a nutshell. They all use the same kind of cheap jump scares, as in, you have the slow buildup beforehand, and it's like, you instantly know, okay, they're gonna do something here where it's a jump scare. Most of the actually scary stuff happens with the last 30 or so minutes of the movie, which makes sense, but also is kind of lame. Obviously, throughout the movie, there's scares, and it's building up to the end, but it feels kind of more important at the end, in a way. I could totally be BSing, which I kind of feel like I am, but they all kind of have that slow build up where the last 30 minutes is like the best part of the movie. It is the stereotypical horror movie. What I mean by that is it has basically almost all of the elements in the movies except for the blood and the gore and death. It's all of the same. You have characters who specialize in something, you have people who don't know what's happening and they call professionals or something, you have jump scares, really annoying jump scares, you have the build-up with the music. It all feels the same. It's your standard horror movie. You tell someone to name a horror movie, they're probably gonna say The Conjuring, honestly. A general stereotypical horror movie, which isn't bad, but it kind of wears itself out eventually. A lot of people on the internet really don't like these movies. I don't blame them in some of the reasons, but I just wanted to point that out, that not a lot of people on the internet really like these movies. They can get a little overhyped. Now, the one that I mostly remember is for The Devil Made Me Do It. They kind of overhyped that movie a lot, kind of with all modern horror movies. They overhype them, but it felt like with the third one, they didn't really go into depth with what's happening, which is good, so they don't spoil it. But I remember it being a lot. Like, you saw it was like an ad on YouTube every so ads. It would get annoying. Another thing that a lot of people on the internet hate is they're expecting something that's from, like, especially with the first one with James Wan. Most people know James Wan for the Saw, or at least for Saw 1, Malignant, Aquaman, Dead Silence. So they're expecting something scary out of James Wan and kind of edgy, but I can see why people kind of just didn't feel like it met up to James Wan's other movies. Quick side note, The Conjuring 3 has the same exact door sound effect as Lego Batman the video game from 2006. Van Helsing also has this sound effect, by the way. It's just a stock sound. Cheapos. Anyways, side rant over. Move on to the last few. The movies can feel really predictable at sometimes. I think it's because it is that stereotypical horror movie style where it's need to know what this demon does or something. They find out and it's like, okay, we need to get rid of the demon. It all feels predictable at sometimes, especially with jump scares. Another side note, Denethor, the guardian of Minas Tirith of Gondor, is in the third movie. He's not eating chicken or grapes, and it's very close-ups on him eating, sadly. But I just wanted to point that out, that he's in that movie, and I had to pause the movie and process that he was in the movie, and it made me really happy. Now, onto the next movie of discussion, The Vavitch. The Vavitch has a 7 out of 10 stars on IMDb, a 90% Rotten Tomato score, or Fresh Tomato, a 60% audience score. It had a $4 million budget and grossed $40.4 million. Some gripes that I do have about The Witch is the Old English sometimes can be very hard to understand, but that's probably because my brain is smooth. Or it's not, and it's just Old English, and somehow people don't understand Old English. Sometimes the music can be really loud.
What you say is heresy.
Which isn't a bad thing. The music is also very rare in the movie anyways, so kind of makes sense that it has to be kind of loud and more important, but it does feel a little bit too loud at some times. Baby death is very hard to watch for some people. I would personally give someone this movie and be like, oh yeah, watch this, and then kind of forget about it, and then be like, dude, what the heck? And I'm like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I was gonna honestly offer my mom to watch this movie, and then I watched the baby scene again and was like, oh, forgot this happened in this movie. It does have some things that some people are gonna be a little uncomfortable with. The twins in this movie are so annoying. Oh my god. That's what their character trait is that they're kind of annoying with stuff with Black Phillip. They're just children. And I hate children sometimes. There are some kids that are chill, but others it's like, I'm gonna punt you like a football. There's a lot of wood chopping scenes, which makes sense for Ralph Ineson's character is chopping wood for anger, but oh my gosh, we need to stop doing wood chopping scenes in movies. This is like the third movie that I've seen recently that's had it. Both of the Amityville horrors, so the original and the remake, both have them, and then this has it. And it's like, can we stop with wood? Do something else. It just gets a little bit annoying because it's all like their character really does at some points is just, oh, time to chop wood to get my anger out. And it's like, okay, but why do we have to kind of really show it a lot? It's just a small gripe on that one. This movie honestly was the hardest one for me to get gripes on because I really enjoy this movie. Out of all the movies that I'm talking about today, it's personally my favorite. I will literally just watch this movie whenever and I'll enjoy it all the way. This movie is an overall fun watch. As I was saying, it's super unique compared to all of these. It's like the first time in a while since we've actually gone back to the olden times of living in the Americas. I think the only one that really does that is Fear Street for one of its movies. But I feel like this it's like a time capsule in a way. It just feels different, but I think it's because when they built the set for this, they built it from the ground up outside, and it just made it feel authentic, and it's just really cool to see. And overall, what I mean by that, it's a very uncommon movie, especially for the time period, but it just works. It works very well. Moving on to the next movie. All right, we've made it. We're in 2018 at this point for movies. Slender Man. The IMDb is 3.2 stars out of 10. It has a 8% Rotten Tomato score, a 16% audience score. The budget was roughly 10 to 28 million, and it grossed 51.7 million. I'm surprised that it grossed that much, but I see why. All right, so before I begin, this movie, my god, I hated it.
You think this is funny?
In a cosmic sort of way, yes.
Well, Mr. Funny Man, is this how you get your sick kicks?
What? It's just an ordinary crabby. Oh my goodness!
This movie just somehow did a thing where it doesn't make sense. In the future, I'd love to talk about video game movies overall. That would be a cool movie, and I would bring this movie up again for it. But just letting you know, I'm kind of one of those people that's like, I didn't like the adaptation from the base games because it didn't feel the same. Starting off with my gripes of Slender Man. The characters are not interesting to follow. What I mean by that is you don't have a strong connection with them. So whenever like Slender Man takes them away or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, whatever, I guess. The plot is weak. And what I mean by that is it feels a little rushed. The main story of Slender Man is this group of girls. They overhear this group of guys that they're all kind of friends with and whatnot. They hear their plans of, hey, we're going to try and summon Slender Man because we're cool like that. Ha ha ha. And then they're like, oh, we're going to do it for them. And they do. And then they all slowly get picked off because they're all dumb. It's terrible. It's cliche. It's cringe. And it's just, oh my god. It's just mostly the beginning is the worst part because they're trying to build up the world and it sucks. All these characters aren't really relatable. The only thing that like they do is one of the girls has like an alcoholic father, which is like, oh, okay, we're gonna add some seriousness into this. Like, it's like the only thing they do. Slender Man himself looks bad. I hated how he looks. Like, I'd pause the movie and it'd be like, this looks so bad. You can tell that they 100% use CG and it's, oh my god. This is a picture of what he looks like. Okay, this is what he originally looks like. Now this. It's bad. It just doesn't feel right with me. Whenever he's on screen, I just hate him. And he's also like in the darkness all the time. They don't really show him off that much. They use, again, the cheap ways of doing jump scares. Most of it's not even Slender Man himself. It's just loud noises that they do. And it's very annoying. They'd be like just doing something and then BAM! And then it's like, oh, okay. why'd you do that? It just gets really annoying. The movie doesn't really connect to the games that much. With other video game adaptations, they kind of intertwine the story a little bit with the movie, so it makes more sense. But with this, it doesn't connect with that. I think it's because the whole plot of Slenderman games is just collect 8 pages, and as you're collecting them, he's gonna slowly get faster and faster and be on your tail more. I see that and trying to make a story about it feel a little rough, but also not. They could have easily just done, hey, you're like an investigator or something, and you slowly find these pages and he's slowly at you and you get kind of more plot of the character that doesn't really need plot, but it's better than this. It would be way better than this. And also the references are very minimal. One of the characters actually draws out some pictures that are like kind of close to the games. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool, but it's like this much of the movie. The characters make very dumb decisions. Oh my god. Chloe, because I remember that because I was writing it while I was watching. There's a scene where they're like, oh, we have to sacrifice the things that we love the most and we can't look at him or he'll kill us. And this chick, she's like, oh, I don't see anything wrong. So she takes her blindfold off, and then Slenderman kind of spooks her and does this weird thing. And then eventually, as Slenderman's kind of choosing her to be the next victim, one thing that I just hate overall in movies is the whole unknown call situation of you see an unknown number and you swipe to call it. She does this, and it's like, oh my god. And the thing is, some of it is kind of just, oh, they don't know who it is. Like, with Malignant, it's different because it's a detective. They have a whole reasoning of that. With this, it's just doesn't make sense, especially with teenagers, obviously, because the characters are teenagers, if you couldn't tell. Teenagers are very smart about not picking up unknown numbers, that it feels like they just dumbfounded her and just made her not feel as smart as she should be, realistically. So it's also playing the fact that they're kind of dumbfounding what people would realistically be, which is a little rough. The characters don't add much to the story, except for we summon Slenderman, come for us, and them kind of slowly learning, oh, he's like this mental thing in our heads, and I'm going crazy because of it. And it's like, it's not what Slenderman's even based off of, so it's kind of just, it's off-putting. Kind of going back to with the CG, all the photos that they have of Slenderman in the movie, they feel very poorly photoshopped. Like, you can tell they found a picture, they got a picture, and they got him and just placed it on top of the photo. He doesn't feel with the photos, and it just looks bad. That could also just be me from my VFX side of knowledge and just seeing it and just being like, ooh, that looks bad. But this is also a 2018 movie, so CG is pretty decent. The budget probably did cost it down a little bit. CG probably took up most of the budget, and they worked what they got. I mean, you made a movie at the end, it's cool. I don't know, it's just small gripes for me. They're also trying to make Slenderman make sense, and what I mean by that is the whole theory thing of like the mental stuff. They're trying to make it more make sense than just, he's just this creepy pasta from the internet that just does this thing. They're trying to make sense of it when it doesn't need to make sense, and it kind of gets really boring because of it. Adding on to the creepypasta stuff, they filmed this in the worst time. Creepypastas were more of a 2010, like early 2010s thing. They should have made the movie then. I feel like it being in 2018 kind of also, it just takes it away because it's not really in the hype of creepypastas. It's more on the downfall of creepypastas that it was made. So it just feels off because it wasn't really that popular and it was just made out of nowhere. So that's another small gripe that I have. Sometimes Joey King feels like the only actress in the whole movie that's taking her role seriously. She does, I will say, she does do a good job of playing a crazy person, but it feels like her acting is like on top of everyone else's except for the main character, who I don't even remember her name is. Maybe editor me will point it out. It's just, So there's a problem with acting overall, where you have one actress who's doing top-notch stuff because she's been in a lot of good movies and whatnot, and then you have everyone else that's like on the lower end where it's like, oh, you could have had more effort, or the director should have made you act better. Overall, the movie was disappointing to watch. It doesn't really have an ending. It just kind of ends with the main girl's sister talking about what's happened. It just ends there. The script by far is the worst part of the movie, followed by that CGI, but again, I'm not really mad at the people specifically for doing it. They probably just ran out of money at the end and they just couldn't, they had to work with what they had. The acting is mid overall. It's kind of lame at some points. It just doesn't make sense. And then it just doesn't feel like Slenderman at all. Just the whole ideology of Slenderman. They tried to make it more reasonable and it didn't work. Two things that the movie did okay. It had some decent B film at the beginning before everything went downhill. And then I guess it tried something new. It had some unique things, but overall it was not good. Now to the final movie, we have hit 2023 with The Pope's Exorcist. The IMDb stars is 6 out of 10. It has a 49% Rotten Tomatoes score and an 81% audience score. It had an $18 million budget, and it grossed over $77 million, which is pretty good. So this is the first one that I actually really did before I did everything else, so it's probably going to be longer than everything, so bear with me. So I'm going to start out with the demon. The demon's voice is lame. What I mean by that is you can tell that they just voiced over the kid's voice with Ralph Ineson's voice. Ineson? Is it Ineson's or Innocent? Whichever way. You can tell that they easily just dubbed over it and it's just a little rough. The voice, for me, didn't work. It probably is because he has a very English, like a deep English voice. Just as a demon, it doesn't really feel twisted as I feel like it should be. Because with it, I feel like if they just did it this way, they should have had the kid's voice and Ralph Ineson's voice at the same time. It would have made it better. But it's just his voice. And I think that's just a problem with demons overall with film and whatnot. They're like, it has to be this deep, creepy voice. And it's like, it doesn't have to be. You can make it creepier if you add stuff to it. So that's basically the voice. Henry's makeup, Henry's the kid, by the way. The makeup doesn't really feel the part. And what I mean by that is in the movie, they talk about how the possession is excessively going. So he should look like Reagan when you first meet him, like a little bit like Reagan from The Exorcist, of like his body just like being gross and dying. But it's not really like that until like the last 30 minutes, which sucks, because it feels weird. I think it's because, but yeah, his makeup just doesn't feel like the part, and it feels off because of them saying that the progression is exceeding quickly and you just see a few scars on his face and that's it. Whenever Henry or the demon is very angry, he has this face and I hate it so much. He looks like he's pouting or he has something in his mouth that he won't spit out. And that's all he does, is just, and it's just very annoying. So that was a small rant. It just looked very dumb whenever he does that. And he does that like most of the film. The demon possession kind of happens too quick. It happens within like the first 10 minutes, which with like The Exorcist, which I'm going to be comparing this movie to for no reason, except for I like The Exorcist. It takes Reagan a little bit before you see the possession really take over Reagan. It takes like 20 minutes, but you get to understand Reagan as a character and her connection with her mom. With this movie, you don't get that. You just get this kid, oh, okay, I'm just gonna do a thing, and then it's like, oh, by the way, it's only like 12 minutes. Oh, yep, he's possessed now. It's kind of lame. And you don't really get to know Henry as a character. Personally, you only get to know Henry when his mom's talking about him, which is kind of dumb. They should have just had Henry actually do something or let us know more about him, except for his mom telling Gabrielle what happened with him. So it's just kind of lame. This movie sometimes doesn't feel like it's taking it seriously. What I mean by that, a few things that I have is when Gabriella is on his moped, which is a Ferrari moped, by the way, because he's in Italy. Either they should have had it in black, actual moped be black or something, because it does not fit the scene. Russell Crowe looks goofy on the moped overall. Like they take like something serious, like when he's going to the house for the first time and he's sitting there and he's going and it has like some like intense music or something going on, and it's just, you see him on a moped. Out of everything that they could have had him drive, a moped. And it's like, oh no. Especially when he goes to the house, it should have been taken 10 times more serious than him driving on his moped. There's also parts where Gabrielle kind of makes jokes to the other priest, and it's like lighthearted jokes, and it's like, okay, this is getting annoying. Another thing is, it is very lame of the demon kind of bullying Gabrielle for having PTSD of a thing that he didn't do. So for those that haven't watched The Pope's Exorcist, Gabrielle was a war veteran during World War II, and his friends or in his squad all died except for him. There's the thing of the demon being like, oh, you're weak for not dying or being a coward for hiding and whatnot. And it's like, that's so dumb. Especially if it's like PTSD. That's like heavy stuff to kind of like have a demon kind of bully someone over. Realistically, it makes sense, but it's like, really? That's a sensitive topic to kind of poke with a stick in a movie, because usually with PTSD in movies, they actually kind of represent it of it's a serious topic. In this movie, it's like a light thing that they kind of add on. One thing that actually I don't like about this movie is them getting proof of Henry being possessed. With The Conjuring and The Exorcist, they're always like, hey, we need to get evidence for the church to prove that it's a demon and that we need to exorcise it. This movie just skims over it. All it does is have the other priest, I don't remember his name, he goes into the room, he gets flown out, hits the cabinet, Henry's like, wrong priest, or something, and it's like, okay, but that's all they show. Then it's like, oh my god, he's possessed. Oh my god. They don't talk about, hey, we actually need like a recording or something, or like an audio recording. We need to see what the demon does. None of that. They are just like, oh, it's a very serious thing. This is a very dangerous demon, Gabriel, and I'm the Pope. So go get him. And it's like, there's no intense stuff of showing that Henry's possessed until he actually does stuff when Gabriel is there. And it's really annoying. A real quote that's in the movie, and I quote, and I'm going to look at it so I can read it. Are we going to talk all night, or do you want to battle? The demon says that to Gabriel, where it should be a serious point. The demon is just like, are we going to talk all night, or are we going to battle? And it's like, dude, why? Who wrote that? Who wrote that? It is such a terrible line.
Are we going to talk all night, or do you want to battle? Know what I'm going to do to you, Gabriele.
And it's just, especially for this, like with Reagan and Captain Howdy, Reagan's like, oh, it's a perfect day for an exorcism. And it's like, okay, it's a little lighthearted, but it's also like, oh, it's a good day for this to happen. But it doesn't really take itself lighthearted, but mostly because it's The Exorcist, and The Exorcist is a good movie. But this line from the demon sucks. It doesn't make sense. It's lame. It's just very annoying when I hear it. So one thing that I kind of hate about most exorcism movies is the idea of the demon wanting to possess the priest in charge or something. In this movie, the demon kind of roughly brings it up, but Gabriel doesn't really pay attention. And then eventually it's like, oh snap, he wants me. And it's like, yeah, we know. It's just the whole idea of a demon trying to possess a priest is very annoying and boring, because that's what every exorcism movie kind of feels like. Is most of them, by the way, it feels like, oh, I actually want to possess you, so ha 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 ha, screw you. And it's like, really? It's just lame. I mean, it eventually does possesses Gabriel, but after that it's like, okay, now what are you gonna do? This does make sense. A few scenes that actually made me really mad is sometimes the movie feels very digital. And what I mean by that is mostly them trying to blend CGI blood and real blood. Two scenes that really point out with the blood is whenever the Pope spits out blood and hits the one bishop. It looks so fake, and then it looks like they hit him. They actually got the bishop dude. He actually has real blood on it, or like fake blood on him. But then like them trying to take the Pope, spitting out the blood and hitting the bishop looks bad. Another thing with that is with the second priest and his whole thing with that girl, and he exorcises that demon, and she turns into like a thing of blood, and then she splats. That also looks really bad, and it just kind of splats, and they're trying to mix it with them actually dumping fake blood on him, and the transition is bad. Them trying to do different eyes for Henry with the demon, it sucks. It looks good, like I will admit, the eyes look good in a way, but for this, it just doesn't feel right, and it takes it out of the movie a little bit. The scratches on the wall that happen, those look very, not as bad as the blood with the transitions, but it's there, and you're like, oh, okay, you clearly just marked places where you're gonna have scratches and whatnot, or morphed it, but it feels digital. And then the gunshot wounds, whenever they go back to World War II with Gabrielle, gunshot wounds don't look good either, but again, it's not the main focus of the movie, so it gets a slight nudge of agreement. And then overall, this movie wasn't as scary as I thought it would. I'm pretty sure as in like 10%, I am pretty sure that whenever they marketed this movie, they were saying it was the scariest movie ever made. And then they would show the audience like screaming or something. And then I watched it and I was like, this wasn't scary at all. Now, it could be the fact that I watched it at home instead of in a movie theater where the sound is around you and you have a bigger screen to watch at. Well, I was mostly watching it on my phone with an earbud in. If marketing is saying it's supposed to be the scariest movie and it fails that's a big problem. Overall, not the worst. I think my biggest problem that I have with this movie is me in comparing it to The Exorcist, because I personally enjoy The Exorcist more. I think there's more creepiness involved with the whole Exorcist, and it could just be that The Exorcist was in the 70s and this is 2010s, 2020s. So there's like a big gap of things that we can do in movies than what we could do in the 70s and whatnot. This movie does have some good shots, I will admit. They have some good story points of the whole history of the church building, whatever. That is cool, I will admit. The shots of Rome are actually pretty good, I will say. It's pretty nice to see. I think that's pretty much it for the Pope's Exorcist again. Overall, it's not the worst. It could be better, but I feel like because I prefer The Exorcist more, it's getting in the way of trying to be like, okay, this movie was good. So yeah, now it's time to wrap up. Now, after looking at some of these movies, I think it's time to answer some important questions that I didn't even bring up at the beginning. First off, Is modern horror failing? No, 100% not. So far, in 2024, we have some rough patches, but you're talking from 2000 to 2024 so far, what we have, it is not failing. A lot of the movies that I talked about kind of prove that. The Conjuring, the first movie grossed like $300 million in box office, which is impressive. I think that's something to say. We're getting more unique horror movies anyways from just the idea slasher. And I feel like, yes, it is important to maybe follow back on those horror movies, on those old movies with like the requels and extra sequels, but I feel like also overall they are kind of teeter-tottering the scale of if they're failing or not. Are the companies failing? Possibly, but no. I would love to diss on a specific company, but I do not want to ruin my reputation in any way in case I actually do get a job working. If I somehow get a job working at this place, I would like to not be on the internet being like, oh, they bad. But I probably will never work for them. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they won't even find this video. Possibly the companies are failing. They're trying to do quicker, cheaper movies and just getting it all out there for money, and they're making them super cheap that they make their money back because the movie is so cheaply made that they're able to just quickly recover all that they have and make even more. There's also the idea of milking branded names. You know, you have the Halloween series with the new 2018 to 2021 with Halloween Ends. Halloween 2018 was really good, and then you had Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, which didn't really work as well with the idea of Michael Myers. But at the end of the day, it's not really for me to decide what you think. So in the comments, please let me know what you think about modern horror. Is it failing? Is it progressing? It's going to be bigger and badder than ever. Tell me what you think. I think it would be really unique to get a conversation going on something like this, that we can maybe improve on what's happening in the movie industry. So thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're wondering why I haven't done a movie review yet, that's next month. I'm just figuring out what I want to do. I have a few ideas. I might lean towards one over the other, but don't worry. In May, I'm going to actually get a movie review out and hopefully start doing some of those movie reviews that I have on my wall of possible videos. So stay tuned for that. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. It's more different than others of just skimming the ideas or what I thought was kind of bad about these movies, and then putting them on a list and kind of pushing towards those reasons of why movies are failing and kind of using those in a way to kind of talk about these 6 movies. So if you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you are not subscribed and you want to subscribe, go ahead. The button's down there. Subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. Share this with some of your friends that you think might be interested in this. Try and keep my channel growing. That'd be really cool. And then that's pretty much it I have today, and I'll see you in the next video.